All right. Well, I will call the March 11th Airport Advisory Board meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. Michelle, can you please call the roll?
Yeah. Board members Steve Bliss,
Here.
Malcolm Dean,
I'm here.
Harrison Earl,
Here.
Kent Jacobson,
Here.
Melinda Jordan,
Here.
Russell Robeson,
Here.
Orion Wiseman,
Here.
and Councilmember Peck. You have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you. First item on the agenda is our public invited to be heard. So in just a moment, Michelle, I'll ask you to unmute anyone who wishes to speak. Same rules as previously. We'll have 3 minutes for anyone who wants to give a comment and ask them to state name and address to start the comments. Address comments to the board, please.
Okay. Heather, who's not in meeting.
So maybe he wants to make his comment later in the meeting?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, okay.
All right.
There we go.
And seeing no one wishing to comment at this time, we'll move next agenda topic of approval of minutes. Any comments from the board, tweaks, anything on the minutes from our February 11th, 2021 meeting?
Having read and reviewed the minutes, I move that they be approved as written.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So moved by the Vice Chair Jordan and seconded by Board Member Bliss. Any discussion from anyone on the board? All right.
I had a quick question.
Yes, sir.
David Slater, he mentioned last month about the leasing of all the hangars. Does anybody own the hangars outright so that they're not paying a lease, or are all the hangars being leased at Longmont Airport?
Board Member Dean, can I ask you to hold that till a little bit later and just
That's fine.
minutes and come back to it if that's okay?
Okay.
Okay. On the minutes, then, any other comments? All right, so I am going to call roll for each of our votes in accordance with the new participation policy we're going to discuss in a little bit, just so we're ahead of that. So Vice Chair Jordan?
I approve. Or is that a yes or a, okay?
Yes or no, probably.
Yes. Yes, I vote yes.
Board Member Bliss?
I approve.
Board Member Dean?
I approve.
Board Member Jacobson?
I approve.
Board Member Robeson?
Aye.
Board Member Weissman?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here for the last meeting.
Thank you. And the chair will also vote to approve. So that is 6 approve, 1 abstention. The motion carries and we approve the minutes. Next item on the agenda is old business financial update. Mr. Slater, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Revenue to date is $160,556.49. Expended and or encumbered is $57,394.43. Expended and encumbered $26,220. That $26,220 is for the upcoming work that we're going to do on the detention pond, the water quality pond, to bring it in compliance with stormwater quality. And then, so the total difference between revenue and expended and encumbered is $76,942.06 to the good.
Nice.
There was $4,495 under professional contract services to Pet Ditch Company. That had to do with the runway safety area project that we did last year. And we are finalizing payments on those items and should be getting close to closing that out financially and completely. Currently, the snow removal services, we're at $14,217.50. And obviously this weekend that will probably go up fairly significantly due to the upcoming snowstorm.
Maybe can you hold just for a second? Board Member Bliss, you had a question there.
Yeah, well, say that first item that you, for professional contract services? What was that?
The engineering review.
That's
done by Peck Ditch Company.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, that answers the question. Thank you.
Sure. That 6887 was for a couple of months of cleaning at the public restroom. We have decided to do away. They keep raising their rates on cleaning that. And so we decided to do away with that contract for the airport. It's just one restroom, one room that needs cleaning and maintaining, and the amount that they were wanting to charge for maintaining that had increased significantly. So there's another department in the city that has a full-time cleaning person on staff, and we are going to borrow well, I say borrow, we're going to use that employee to clean each week. And it shouldn't take them very long. So we'll do an interdepartmental billing memo for that going forward, I suspect.
Is that somebody that's moving around in the other buildings in the area and will hit us as they go by? Nice. That's good.
Yes, that's
Good.
correct.
Yeah.
And the porta potty service, that's kind of, they had increased their rates as well, but not outrageously. So that's where we're at, $344 on that through February. So any other questions?
Yeah, can we pause for any board questions on that part? Board Member Bliss.
Yes. You talked about this Peck Ditch Company, the engineering review, and in 2020, there's a Peck Ditch Company, and it says RSA plan review. What is RSA?
That's runway safety area.
Runway safety area. Okay. Could I make a request that anytime you put an acronym in there that you write it out? Because there's so many acronyms.
Mhm.
I don't know what they are.
I'll make that change. Thank you.
Okay.
Wouldn't be aviation without them, would it?
No, it wouldn't be.
Mr. Slater, do you think you can address Board Member Dean's previous question since we're on finance and talk about the, I guess, hangar rental business model maybe?
Right. So the airport ground is owned and operated by the city of Longmont. So we just lease the property, and the individual hangars and structures of the lessees or airport owners, investors, and people like that have a hangar or whatever out here, those are from the foundation up belong to the private owner. So the buildings themselves are privately owned. And
Okay.
the only exceptions to that is the electrical vault and the building that I'm in.
Okay. That
The
makes sense.
city owns those two buildings.
Okay. That makes sense. I'm just curious.
Sure.
Other questions from any board members at this point?
Well, I'm sorry, one more question, and this goes back to 2019 on the professional contract. What is this safety risk management analysis for $27,000?
That
What was
was
that?
that was during the time that we were addressing concerns with safety regarding skydiving. And so we hired a professional consultant to do a safety risk analysis. And that was the
Steve, you missed a heck of a public meeting on that one.
I guess I did.
Yeah.
Well, right below it, okay, I understand that now. Right below it, what's a stakeholder meeting facilitator? What is that?
That was part of that process.
That was part
It was?
of the same
Yeah.
process, and
Okay.
the city thought it would be best if they hired an independent third-party facilitator to facilitate between,
To stop the fights?
pretty much.
Okay, that answers that. Thank you.
Board Member Jacobson, did you have a question there?
Yeah, just a question on snow removal with the upcoming weekend storm. How much do you anticipate that number going up because of it? And are you making any special preparations for it?
So yes, I've spoken with the contractor. They are going to have additional equipment on standby as needed. Meaning if they have to bring in a dump truck and load big piles of snow to move to the dump locations, they'll be able to do that. And just planning on hitting it and keeping up with it as much as we can when it gets heavy. My biggest concern with the upcoming storm is how much rain is going to be off and on mixed and alternating between snow showers, rain showers, or a mix of the two, which could possibly create icing conditions. And we don't use chemicals at this airport, so there is the potential for runway closures at certain periods of time. But we're just going to wait and see how that goes and what kind of friction value that we have on the runway before making that decision. As far as the price, I couldn't even guess. I would certainly say it's going to double, but if you're going to have them out there making more passes as the snow continues to fall, it's probably going to be more than double what their normal bill would be, which is anywhere from $2,800 to $3,200 an event. That's kind of the range, I guess, depending on how long it takes them to get stuff done. And with additional equipment, that will probably also spark a little bit more in the price. So I wouldn't even want to begin to guess. And I just don't like to speculate and then have somebody say, well, you told us this amount. Well, it was a best guess. And I would say that it's going to be at least double what our normal bill is. So I'm guessing probably around $6,000. Maybe I'm thinking more than that, but don't hold me to that.
We won't. And plus we keep hearing snowpocalypse and then we hear, oh, it's going to go to the north. And so I'm watching out the window to see the first flakes in case they happen. Last I saw it was midnight, but it looks like snow. It's gray and dropping and it's looking like snow. So we'll take the moisture, that's for sure.
David, broadly, while we're on snow topic really quick, just that dollar amount in 2021 so far is, approaching full year 2020 and substantially higher than full year 2019.
Right. You wanted a response to that? No, I'm just kidding. So in those years, there was a time a few years ago that there was a lot of people suggesting and requesting that we go and get a plow from the Denver auction to get things covered because there was a previous contractor a while back that seemed to be having a lot of breakdowns, and I would have to go borrow a truck from next door at Public Works. And so during that time, I was doing a lot of snow plowing, which saved a lot of money, but the snow plowing I started doing was either because there was stuff missed or lots of breakdowns with snowplow equipment and wasn't getting done in a timely manner. So that's all in the past. We have a contractor and they seem to be doing well so far. And after meeting with LOPA, which is the Longmont Owners and Pilots Association, I've had some comments back from them that they said that people seem to be happy with how things are going now. So we're just kind of looking forward and moving forward.
Helpful context. Thank you.
Sure.
Board Member Bliss, did you have another question?
Well, it was on the same lines as what you were talking about already, David, but could you just, for me, because probably the other board members know this, but will you go over who does the snow plowing? Does the FAA do any of it?
No, this is the only items that the FAA takes care of on the airport for maintenance is the, excuse me, the VASIs. They are owned and maintained by the FAA. Outside of that, the city, through the airport, has a contract with Mountain West Landscapes. And there are other people, individuals out here that have snow plows that do their portion up right up against their hangar and take care of those areas that are not city responsibility. But outside of that, our contractor is Mountain West Landscape.
So the HOAs do not cover their hangars at all?
No, they do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, the HOAs have their own either contractor or someone that is a lessee who has plow equipment on that row or in that group of hangars. Do the plowing for those areas. It's their responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? I'll let you go into the last page of the financial update since we kind of got stuck in the middle here.
Right. Not much to tell on that one for this year. There will be some expenditures that eventually come out and reimbursements under the grant from last year, but that's only to close out the actual grant that carried the financial part that carried from last year into this year. So for now, there's nothing there. As soon as there is, I'll update that page.
Comments, questions from the board on financial update, either specific on the capital and the grants or just broadly? I've got one then. I guess on the grant side specifically, two questions on grants. One, the airport's coronavirus relief and recovery grants program, basically CARES Act 2, it looked like $23,000 come in the airport's way.
That's correct. And that's a formula set up by the FAA, and they determine how much each airport gets based off of their formula.
Okay. Is there thoughts on how that's going to be used for in 2021?
It's even more restrictive than the first grants. So there's not a whole lot we can use it on other than to cover operational cost at the airport. Some of the if we do extra cleanings, then it helps cover those costs to do the cleanings, like the public restrooms and things like that, and eligible for other operational costs, whether it's salary or otherwise.
Okay.
But
so we can take full advantage of it. In other words, it just won't be
right
to a particular project.
Correct.
Okay. Still good. The other, I guess, part of that question, and that's, I think, somewhat related to the measure that President Biden signed earlier today. But my understanding is the airport matches on AIP projects is basically covered for the rest of the year for 2020.
Correct.
So given that, I assume that means we save a decent amount on projects. And, so one, hopefully we'll be able to use those on future projects and or accelerate projects. But two, CDOT also is saving some of that money. And my understanding is at least they're giving some of that back to airports in other grants. And I don't know, I honestly don't know the details there, but don't know what opportunity there is for us to seek out some of the CDOT dollars.
Right. So through our CIP process, when we plan out, they require us to plan out ahead through the CIP process. We are carrying over our $150,000 non-primary entitlement towards our next CIP project. So we don't have any projects planned for 2021. So, and what is covered by that is it cover the CARES Act would cover the state's 5%, and it would cover the sponsor, which is the city's or the airport fund. It would cover that 5% if we had a project.
But since we don't get to take advantage of that.
Correct. So like last year on the runway safety area project, it was 100% FAA grant. And we received, I don't remember the numbers that I gave you guys. It was the total amount of grants we received in 2020. If you count the $69,000 for the CARES Act, the runway safety area project at 100%, and the $400,000 towards the Southside utilities, was a little over $1 million that we received in grant funds last year.
Okay. No way to accelerate a project to take advantage of no match in 2021.
No, generally you have your bids, your engineer estimate, and your engineering at least at 75%. And because we have to plan out based off of what funding they would have available for us. Generally, I mean, we're already in the year that's available when it became available.
I just hate not taking advantage of any we can. So
Yeah.
Right.
Seems like.
Board Member Jacobson, did you have a question?
Just as a follow-up to Russell's question to you last week, David, what about accelerating the paving that we brought up last month? Is that a possibility to figure into grant money?
So in our discussion that we had on that, the pavement that Board Member Robeson was talking about was actually areas of tenant responsibility. So that, and some of the areas of pavement, like the joint seal for the ramp and things like that, the FAA, I mean, could we accelerate it earlier on? We could, but we would have to push off the other higher priorities that we have that are eligible for funds to a different year. So we could swap them around and accelerate them, but you're pushing the other priority projects further down the road. Unfortunately, the FAA in this region kind of does things their own way. And most ADOs are the same way in most aspects, but how they look at runway extensions and things like that is a little bit different in this region than it is in other regions. As far as those eligible items, they all pretty much operate the same way, and there's the only opportunities that we have to apply for funding is like that $23,000 that they've basically allocated for us. As far as just coming up and doing a project, it has to be planned out further in advance than that, because there is a whole process to go through, generally starting at least a year and a half out, with getting categorical exclusions for environmental, getting the engineering done, all the way up through going out to bid and submitting the application, which is SF 424. So it's generally a year and a half process on most projects. If you've already got plans on the shelf that are updated, that would be helpful, but we don't have the budget just to hire an engineer to sit there and pump out plans and put them on the shelf in the event money might come up.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Bliss.
Yes, David, another question for you. I was reading something in the capital improvement plan where there was some unforeseen circumstances with engineering. And I think you've addressed this before, but I forgot what you said that was all about. Is that the sewer system that you're talking about?
Yes, the sewer and the water. They were provided all the information back in around October of 2019. They didn't get started on it until the spring of 2020. and the person that did it retired mid-year, just kind of middle of the summer. He retired and provided the project plans and everything, and it was set up for an on-call contractor, which we needed to go out to bid. The on-call contractor is not set up for installation. They're set up for repairs. And so the more we looked at the plans, the more we realized it wasn't the layout that we had discussed on multiple occasions. And so the new engineer that took over started not completely over, but did a significant amount of work redoing the plans for that project, which has just recently been completed. But because we carried from 2020 into 2021, we now have to go back before council with mid-year appropriations and get that airport fund money match reappropriated towards the project.
Did we pay the first engineer?
It was a city engineer. So any payment would be in arrears through the administrative management fee, if they charge us at all.
Okay.
So, and we did it that way because of the limited budget that we had to go towards this, the projected cost of the project.
But now we're not using the city engineer, correct?
No, we are, because they're the ones that designed it.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. The new engineer that took over for the city engineer that retired.
Okay.
He's with the city as well. So we've got a good engineer on the project now, and he's got that done and ready to go when we get the appropriations for 2021.
Thank you.
Sure.
Last call for any questions on the update here. Then I'll move us on to airport needs recommendations to council. Does any board members have anything they'd like to raise? Mr. Robinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David, I didn't see any vote on our part on the lease rate for this year. Did we just go ahead and go with keeping it the same, or are we doing that another time?
No, we're going to pick it up another month. There's just still too much internal discussion left on that it wasn't ready to come back to you guys. It will come back again when we're ready to send it to council.
Okay.
Anyone?
Prior to us sending it to council, it will go through the board first.
Anyone else have anything there? Well, I have one. Last month, Councilmember Peck mentioned in budget process, she's going to again ask for an operations employee for the airport in addition to David, so 2 employees. Given the budget impact of that, I think it would be appropriate for us to at least discuss whether we'd like to, present an opinion to council, and that may be an agenda topic for a future meeting that is more appropriate than just open discussion now. But if anyone has any thoughts off the bat, just wanted to throw it out there.
So sorry, go ahead.
Russell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess if you're asking for initial thoughts, I would say David knows if he needs an employee, and he knows his budget. So I would probably take his recommendation on whether it's worth it to him or not.
Mr. Slater.
I would definitely love some help, and I think that hopefully by 2022 we should have enough for at least a part-time operations agent. I don't know if full-time is going to be doable, but I will know more in the next few months prior to submitting a request. Or generally when you submit a request for an employee, it's around the same time as you submit your budget to the city for the following year, which is generally in the June timeframe. So I'm hoping in the next month or two to have a better idea of how to best capture the funds for another employee, and if it's doable for full-time or just part-time.
David, would it be appropriate maybe to add this as a May agenda topic then? Knowing that we don't have a June meeting likely, and that way we can send a letter to council either supporting or, expressing the board's opinion so that as they consider it in the fall, they have our advice.
Sure.
Okay.
And in fact, if we can do it next month, I'll let you know, but for now, I'll have it planned for May.
That's great. Thank you. I know you, David, you and I were at one of those council meetings, I think 2 years back, where it kind of came up and then immediately was taken off. So just want to make sure we have the opportunity to influence the conversation in
Sure.
advance and, provide full context. So it's not just kind of one-off when it gets to
Right.
council.
I agree.
Any other questions or comments from the board on airport needs recommendations to council? Mr. Bliss.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the data on the operation of the airport, and I saw this 75,102 takeoffs and landings. How do you get that figure? Do you go out there and count everybody?
It's well, sort of. It's a very complex method of what we call a guesstimate. So there are days that I'll go through and count operations at different days, different times of the year, and then kind of see what the average looks like. I don't count every single day. I don't have time to do that, but
I just wondered how you got 102, 75,102.
It's a guesstimate based off of other days, and if it looks, if I know one day I had 140 something operations, then another day I had 98 operations or something like that, then I just kind of look at it and see where in that range do we think that fits. And it's kind of an average type deal, but
Okay.
not exactly.
Okay, well, I expected that's what it was, but
And with most
how does that-
aviation airports, that's how it works.
how does that compare to past years?
It's certainly lower. We had a lot of operations that were limited during COVID, or at least the initial phases of COVID. There was a lot of activities that were very limited. We even had a point to where Mile High didn't operate for a while. Some of the flight training didn't operate for a while. So I would say that it's probably 8,000 to 10,000 lower.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, I just looked at airnav.com, which gives an estimate of daily operations, and they had 88,000 for 2019. So that's about 15% less based on David's count last year.
Thank you.
I noticed the difference. Like I said, I'm right off the airport and I work from home, and I definitely know that skydiving was shut down. The instructors I know were not flying when we were really locked down, and then people just weren't going up. They couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. So they just weren't doing much. It was noticeable. Days where there were absolutely no operations. Yeah. So it looks like it's getting back to more normal. So that normal will take.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, items for council? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. First item there is adoption of the electronic participation policy during City of Longmont Board and Commission meetings. David or Michelle, I don't know if either of you want to kind of open this up or, describe what this is for us.
I don't want to put Michelle on the spot, although she would probably be better at doing it. But basically, The city has many or several boards and commissions, and as well as the city council meetings. And so they want to put in place a written policy that everyone is aware of that basically outlines how and why virtual meetings would be done, or electronic or telephonic. And so this policy is just that, and kind of encapsulates what the city expects and how they run, how they operate, why it's done that way to the greatest extent possible, I guess. I don't know a whole lot more to say about that other than just going paragraph by paragraph, which I don't think is necessary.
No, I don't think that's necessary. That was helpful just to get the context
Sure.
for board members, and I guess we'll maybe see if any board members have questions beyond that, and then entertain a motion to adopt it.
So I did read it, but I didn't catch doing an audible vote instead of yay, nay. I don't recall seeing that in there. So is that?
Yeah, it's, you mean the roll call vote?
Yeah, was
So
it?
I was going to comment on that.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Ms.
yeah.
So I talked to our city clerk today, and we don't have to do that as long as it's clear in the video who voted for what or how they voted. Then you don't have to do it one by one like that.
Okay.
You can just say, all in favor, aye. Anybody opposed, nay, and then name if anybody says, a vote against it or something like that. That's all you need to do.
So if it sounds like we've got all eyes, like on passing the minutes, we wouldn't need to do it. But if we're voting probably specifically on issues, we'd want to go around and do it for that.
Wouldn't even have to do that. You could just say all in favor, say aye, and then all opposed, say nay.
Okay.
And then just say, okay, board member Earl said, he dissented or whatever, and then you'd be fine. Just as long as it's specific of who made the motion, who seconded the motion, and then who voted which way.
Okay.
Given that information, then it kind of sounds like if you have more than one nay and you don't know who said it, and it seems like the vote may be close, then you might want to do the roll call.
You could do that, or you could just hold your hand up as well, and then make sure that everybody, because that's what I when they do council meetings, that's exactly what they do. Aye, they raise their hands, aye. Nay, raise your hand, nay. But it's totally up to you too. You just want to make it easier and, quicker.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't want to call the roll every time. So we may go with hands. I like that suggestion, unless the board disagrees.
Right.
Board Member Weissman, did you have a question or comment there?
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've already stated your preference. I was going to say that whatever adds clarity and whatever is easier for you to administer is probably the direction we should go. But I like hands as well, so I'll speak in favor of that. But I think what matters is that it's something that facilitates the meeting and keeps us moving forward. So what you're most comfortable with.
Agreed. Thank you. And if we end up where it's close, then we may do a roll call and just make sure it's very clear. But approval of the minutes, I'm not going to worry terribly, since generally those are pretty easy votes.
Do we need to move to accept this? I don't consider
adopt
it an option to adopt it. So I move that we adopt the electronic participation policy during City of Longmont board and commission meetings as spelled out.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So moved by Vice Chair Jordan, seconded by Board Member Jacobson. Any further questions or discussion prior to voting? Mr. Bliss.
Is this something we're going to do forever, or is this just the guidelines for the electronic meetings?
I don't want to speak for city management, nor will I, but in my viewpoint, I suspect that if it ever becomes something that's not needed or needs to be changed, they'll either amend it and send it back out or do away with it. But I suspect, as far as technology has come these days, that they'll probably just leave it in place. Even if we go back to meeting in person, should there be an event come up again later or if the board chooses to do virtual meetings for some other emergency.
Michelle, if you want to chime in
So
on
my
that.
understanding from city attorney is that it's only during emergencies, a pandemic or some kind
Otherwise.
of unforeseen emergency. Yeah.
So it'll probably be in place forever, just for when you do have an emergency.
I think once council goes back to meetings in person, then all boards will go back to meetings in person. That's what it sounds like they're doing. So then this will just be a moot point at that point. Hopefully.
Hopefully. I'd like to go back to person. Michelle, just since you mentioned it, is there any timeline for when council is thinking of that at the moment?
We're hoping June.
Okay.
But it could be August. Just depends on vaccines, really.
Fair.
But aiming for June is what we're aiming for right now.
Well, that's helpful to understand. Thank you.
Mhm.
Board Member Robeson, did you have a question there?
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to ask basically the same thing. I was just looking at the health levels for Boulder County, and I don't know if we'd qualify as a seated event there in the council chambers, but it would appear that we could convene in person based on that. But I guess it sounds like we're waiting for everyone to have the vaccine. Is that the threshold?
Not necessarily us, board members having vaccines, but just getting more and more.
Be nice to have members of the public be able to participate safely too, I imagine.
Exactly. I mean, you still may have to wear masks during that time if you haven't been vaccinated, but
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, if everybody's sitting 6 feet apart and wearing masks, unless I'm reading it wrong, it would appear we could do it in person now, but maybe I'm missing something.
yeah.
I think we could. The upside is we don't have to wear masks when we're meeting like this, which is
That is nice.
Yeah, we do. I do appreciate that. Nobody understands me anyway, so add a mask to it.
Anyway,
I'll be a spectator.
We're so close to general availability of the vaccine. It seems kind of silly to rush if we're really just talking about a matter of months at this point.
I think we're getting close.
We have a motion on the floor to adopt the policy. Any further questions before we vote? Hearing none, we'll try our hand raising here. So all board members in favor of adopting the policy, raise your hands, please. Okay, anyone opposed? Board Member Dean, I could not see your hand in either one of those. I'm sorry. Can you either aye or nay?
Who was that for? Who was that for?
Malcolm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I had my hand raised. Yeah, that's it. I said aye.
I thank you. I just couldn't see your hand on the screen. So
Okay.
I think that was everyone in favor of adopting. So thank you all. Next topic there then is the Airport Advisory Board annual report to council. So you all have had this in the packet in advance. The idea here is a vote to approve and send it to council. Any discussion from the board prior to that? Mr. Robeson.
I didn't hear anybody immediately lodge any major complaints, so I'll skip right down to minor and pedantic. On the just the formatting at the bottom of the goals, on the airport goals and accomplishment, some of the headers are all caps and some are regular capitalization. So just for consistency, I guess if we could change that to one or the other, that would please me.
I will make those adjustments. Thank you.
On a positive note, our Pilots and Paws made the newspaper, if you saw that, and there were a lot of calls, TC line and open editorial, and received a lot of praise. I think I saw probably 369 at least calls in or compliments to the pilots that are flying to rescue animals. And that was sort of I don't know how the paper found out about it. I had talked to James and interviewed him for the annual report, and then they caught wind of it and went out and got some photos, and they've just really got it netted some really good community engagement, really positive. And of course, the medical flights that are flown with the Phenom that Wade Tag flies, nobody's really ever asked about those. And I think everybody assumes those are business flights, but he does do quite a bit with that. And he'd had some really nice write-ups in national publications as well. So some nice visibility for our airport, and to kind of remind people in the area that see the jets and maybe want to complain about it, or the helicopters when we're doing training. I really look at this report. I hope that it's where the public can get to it to see that and kind of understand some of the justification behind the use of the airport and how it contributes back to the community. I know we produce it, it goes to council, it'll be a part of the record there. And I just am really pleased with the coverage that we got on some really positive stuff on what was otherwise a pretty quiet year for the airport.
Likewise, Melinda, I think it's great. And it's great to highlight it here as well. It's
Yeah.
really positive. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the report and send to council.
With the caveat that I'm changing the header.
Oh, yes, motion to approve as amended.
There you go. I make a motion that we approve the 2020 annual report for the airport with the amendment. I'm going to withdraw that. One more thing, in the 2020 airport data, the total flight operations is 66,318, but in the sidebar it's 75,102.
Yeah, I need to make that change. Sorry.
Okay, so I move that with that change and the header font changes, that we approve the 2020 airport annual report as written and for presentation to council.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any last discussion on the motion?
Sorry, who seconded that?
Russell.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no further discussion, let's vote. So all those in favor of adopting the report as amended, raise your hand, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Raise your hand. And Michelle, just for the record, it looks like Board Member Bliss dropped off here. So we are 6 in favor and Board Member Bliss not present.
Thank you.
All right. So then we will move right along to our final public invited to be heard. Michelle, if you can unmute if there is someone who wishes to provide comment. Same rules, 3 minutes for comment. Please state name and address at the beginning and address your comments to the board.
This is Don Dulce and 335 Pratt Street, Longmont. Hopefully you can hear me. My question concerns the noise complaint log. And I think that's a very nice summary that's been presented in the body of the presentation that's going to council. I've delved deeply into noise for a number of years and looked at the nature of the noise complaints. And so I'm wondering if I could get some additional information. It would be in the form of detailing how many times individuals complained about the various things they could complain about, which would be general aviation, skydiving, helicopter, and et cetera. Those categories that they do have a tick mark in. As an example, we have one complainer that complained 31 times. So individual number 1 complained 31 times. What
Just
Sorry,
hang-
all somehow it froze, so I
It
just
did.
got back.
What happened?
Not
We had-
sure, but we're all back here.
Okay, so the question was on the number of complaints.
Don's still here?
Think
Yeah,
so.
Mr.
You still
Dulce, if
there?
you're still there, you were
The
about a minute.
last, the last
30
I heard was the word "what."
What? Uh-oh.
Sir,
I'm
we
not
did
sure
go
how
ahead
far
and
back that was.
unmute you back again. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm on.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where the word "what" was in the listing.
You were going to ask, you had one complainer, one person with 31 complaints, and you were going to ask a question about that, the nature of the complaints, I think.
Okay, here was the information I needed, if I could get it. So we had one person that complained 31 times. I'm interested in what did that one person actually complain about? Did that person complain about the whole spectrum of things that are tallied in the report already, or did that one person complain only about skydiving? And as you work your way back up through the list, person number 2 complained 4 times. But what did they complain about? And so in the end, there would be 34 different individuals, and they all complained about something or a variety of things. And that information would allow an expected and observed statistical analysis to be made to see if there are any statistical outliers in the data that tend to bias these reports. So that's the kind of information I would like to have, if possible.
Thank you, Mr. Dulce, for the comment. Mr. Slater, perhaps in the final staff comments here, you might be able to address that a little bit. So with that, then, hearing nobody else wishing to make public comment, we will move on to board, council representative, and/or staff comments. And I'll start with the board. Any board members wish to make additional comments? Okay. Mr. Slater, would you like to make any comments? David, you're muted, unfortunately.
Thank you. Sorry. With regards to the questions that was posed in public invited to be heard, there is an analysis by complaint type. It just doesn't break it out by each individual complainer, which I guess that could be a curiosity question for some people. I think this is more of a presentation to council over the just going into the overall generalities of the noise complaint system, and how that helps me as the manager. This is just information that they've wanted to see. You could put the extra work into coming up with many different various tables and graphs and charts from any amount of information that comes from that system. I'll be happy to provide Mr. Dulce with the data that we have from that system. And typically each year he generally makes a public records request for that data. Just haven't seen one this year, but I will get with him and see about getting him that data so that he can go through it as he likes. But as far as the format of this information, this is the format and the information that council looks at, and we do break it down. We do have an analysis by complaint type. Specifically, the one person that complained 31 times was about skydiving.
Okay.
And generally, when you have one person complain that often, that's historically been the case. But there's a lot that goes into breaking all this data down and figuring out how many complained about what category, as well as the last table on the last page that you see there, how many people complained how many times, which is the kind of information that we're wanting to clarify. Outside of that, the way it helps me is I look at the areas that seem to be the most affected or hardest hit, if you will, and try to put that information out to the pilots to ask for being good neighbors and being courteous as much as possible. The one thing I will note for this report is if you look at general aviation, it comes a lot closer percentage-wise to skydiving than it has in the past, because people have been at home more, working from home because of COVID. And believe it or not, a lot of the complaints are about touch and go operations, and generally it's from somebody that lives next to the airport. Phone calls that I've received that people are asking about touch and goes that aren't necessary. They may have filed a complaint here or may not have. I've actually had people under the downwind leg for 29 complain. I've had people off the approach end of, the departure end of 11, approach end of 29 complain. And then again, some to the south and the other hotspot areas that we typically had, but now we're getting more under the downwind. And, there's not a whole lot that can be done about that. Actually, nothing really can be done about that because it's under the pattern. That's the established traffic pattern. And, that's what I tell them. And so a lot of what you see under general aviation has been people complaining about touch and go operations, and generally they're living right next door to the airport.
I did see a flurry of chatter on Nextdoor from Southmore Park, the area closer to Pike Road, during the lockdown, and claiming 500 feet overhead, and pilots coming in from other airports to use ours. And there was quite a bit of chatter that I kind of just watched. And then Trevor Bear was also watching it, and he helps us with our social media as well. So the skydive complaints kind of speak for themselves. The single helicopter, three on the jet. Some people get frightened when it comes in solo on final there. But the GA complaints is the one that we really can do something about if there's something to be done. But I think we're going to see it was really people being at home and actually not directly under the pattern. And that was part of the complaint. But when I lived off Pike Road, I was in the path. I was right in the path with that Mitsubishi, and it would go over all the time. So it's that end of town does get traffic coming in. And I think that generated some complaints from down there, but it's good to see them down overall, just to see that number be so much smaller. And you get the odd complaints. And so I think it's really, if we know more about the GA complaints, if there's anything spectacular out of the skydive other than just them going up and getting altitude, then that would be interesting information. But otherwise, it's really good to see them be down, especially in a year where everybody was home.
Agreed. Linda and David, that was really helpful context. Thank you. David, did you have any other topics you wanted to raise in comment section here?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, since we don't have a council member tonight, last call for any board members. All right. Then we will adjourn the March 11th, 2021 Airport Advisory Board meeting. Thank you, everyone, for participating tonight, and we'll see you next month.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks,
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Sorry I left.